What's up, everyone? Today, I want to talk about some of the wildest stuff I've seen and/or experienced at horror conventions. I've been going to horror conventions since I think 2009. I think was the first one I went to, and yeah. So I had been hearing about horror conventions for a few years leading up to this. It took a while to be like, oh, I should probably commit to going to some of these because there's some pretty like significant people that I'm fans of that I probably need to go see. I think it was 2008. John Carpenter had come up through like Monster Mania or something like that. I can't remember what it was, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it! You could meet John Carpenter." I didn't wasn't really on my radar of something to like go do. And a lifelong horror fan, collected and read Fangoria, like would pick them up as a kid. Would pick up Fangorias as a kid, obviously, a huge magazine for a lot of kids in the 90s and the early 2000s. And started seriously collecting. I obviously had movies I liked, but started seriously collecting in the mid 2000s. And, that was, really hunting out DVDs and buying movies weekly, every single day almost from like 2000, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 onward. So, yeah, it's never stopped. The addiction's never stopped. So, but when horror conventions started getting on my radar, it was still like, we're like a year or so, 18 months before Walking Dead. Now, when Walking Dead rolled in, completely different vibe change. Like, once the Walking Dead cast started coming and being a part of horror conventions, that's when we saw, prices get raised. More people were coming out. More casual fans were coming out. And don't get me wrong, horror conventions, you're always going to get casual horror fans that roll through. But I did start going to horror conventions at a time where they were full, but they weren't completely packed. And the first horror convention I went through, I believe it was Horror Hound in Cincinnati in 2009. And much like, I grew up going to punk rock, hardcore, metal shows. And much like that, like you start finding kindred spirits. You start finding, much like that, you find, like-minded people. You find people who are fans of the same stuff you are. And it's a place especially for most others, you find a place where you belong, where you can nerd out with people you've never met before about, I don't know, Demons 2 or, like Cemetery Man or something random like that like the average Joe isn't going to know those titles. So, there is definitely like kindred spirits at horror conventions, much like I found going to hardcore and punk rock shows and metal shows to a lesser degree. But I have seen some wild, wild shit. Some of it downright hilarious. So the first convention I went to, I had met Tom Savini, Tom Atkins, Gunnar Hansen, and Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, Elvira, a queen, as it were, in our horror world here. And I will say this, every single one of them was an interesting meet. And I'll go through these, and then I'll tell you some of the truly most wild shit that I've seen. First person I ever met at a convention, Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins, obviously, Creepshow, Halloween 3, Lethal Weapon, Night of the Creeps. The guy has just done it all. And he's coming off the heels. This is later in the year. He had just done the My Bloody Valentine remake. He was old then. He's still alive, still doing cons. He was all about it. He's clapping his hands. What do we got, boys? It's going to be great to see you here today. And he was just the man. He was super fun. And I think we had met Gunnar Hansen, and I had asked Gunnar Hansen about the mafia involvement with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because again, there was no line. Like, we were like some of the first people into the convention on this Friday, back in November of 2009, and there wasn't a huge line, so you could ask those questions. Now, people will ask those questions when there's 500 people in a line, and Matthew Lillard or whoever's got to friggin' entertain these people. And I'm aside from a few, if the line's dead and there's no one there, I'll ask some question that had been in my mind. But for the most part, I try to be very nice. Hey, how's your day going? Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for signing my shit. I keep it very casual. I don't need some kind of crazy interaction. I had asked Gunnar Hansen about the Mafia involvement, and he gave me a very detailed dissertation about the entire thing, and it was great. And then the line started to form. I felt like a jerk, so I got moving. Tom Savini. So this is the first wild story that I have involving my buddy Sean. Yesterday was his birthday. Happy birthday, Sean. But we had went there, and we had watched, the My Name is Jason documentary, and I'm pretty sure in that, Savini says something like, We killed Jason in I can't remember what it was. I think he said, we killed Jason in the final chapter. So if you watch any of them after that, you're dumb. Or, he's just like, people are stupid. They keep coming back and blah, blah, blah. He said it very kind of in jest, as, he was part of the final Friday. And then, he pretty much said jokingly, I think to some degree, that you're foolish if you watch and any of the Friday the 13th beyond that. So my buddy Sean, bless his heart, is a little probably nervous, but also just kind of blurts things out. And we're meeting Savini. Savini's signing something for me, and we're just kind of standing there, and my buddy Sean's sitting there looking at his table right in front of Savini. And we'd already heard some horror stories about Savini not being so pleasant. I've met Savini twice. I never got that from him. He seems like someone that's short, and he doesn't personalize stuff. And I think he's actually said, I don't personalize stuff because I don't know you. We're not friends. I'm just signing something for you. So I get why someone could view that as kind of rude, but I get it. He doesn't want to get in deep conversation with someone he doesn't know. Granted, should you be that way with fans? Who's to say? Whatever. Anyway, so my buddy Sean, big dude, 6'4", 6'5", wrestling billing, as he'll tell you. Big dude, and says, so you think anybody that watches Friday the 13th Beyond the Final Chapter is an idiot? And he says it in that tone at Savini. And I literally couldn't believe it. Me and my boy Brian, BT, look at each other, and I couldn't believe it. And Savini, expecting maybe some rapid fire, snarky, pissed off response, actually gave a pretty detailed answer and said, no, I actually didn't say that. I said blah, 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 blah. And it was just kind of it. Savini didn't show any kind of outward anger or emotion like that. And I was like, oh, he was kind of he handled that well, considering my boy Sean literally was just so you think we're all idiots? And it was just so awkward but hilarious at the same time. And thankfully, Savini was having a good day. And this is, Savini's a little older now. He's not as jacked as he once was, but this is prime old man Savini, where he's just yoked. He's yoked. He's got he's wearing a tank top. He just looked like a crazy person that was going to rip your damn head off. But anyway, so that was, I always think of that. And, not long after that, we had went to a convention, and there was Gary Busey. Gary Busey was at this convention. He's signing at the table, and we're kind of like him and Han. Should we meet Busey? And honestly, to a degree, I love Busey and so much stuff, but I'm just I wouldn't want to have a weird interaction with him. If I think someone's going to be awkward or weird or would be standoffish or just have an attitude, I'm good. I don't need it. I don't need to. And I got a story about that too. So we're younger, we're early 20s, if that. Oh yeah, so it's 2009, 10, we're in our early 20s. And I had said we just stupid. We walk in this small room that Gary Busey's in, and we had just watched Silver Bullet like the night prior, so Silver Bullet lines are running in our head. And if you know Silver Bullet, the werewolf film based off the Stephen King novel Cycle of the Werewolf, in it, when Gary Busey's character of Uncle Red is drinking and playing cards with Corey Feldman, his nephew Marty, they're trading baseball cards. They're gambling for baseball cards. And he starts singing. He goes, piss on the Yankees, piss on the Indians, piss on the Phillies. He starts singing before the mother gets mad and kicks Red out and sends Marty to bed. Anyway, so we walk in this room, and we're probably 10 feet from Gary Busey. And me being the goddamn chucklehead I am, I go, piss on the Yankees, piss on the Indians. And without fail, thinking he wouldn't have heard us, because there's quite a bit of other conversation, commotion, peripherally, everyone's around. I said it loud enough where he literally looked up and goes, hey! And just did the finger wag. And it was hilarious. That would have been enough for me. I didn't meet Gary Busey. I still had not met Gary Busey. I've seen him at multiple conventions. That was not the funny story. About an hour later, I walk into the bathroom, and there's a line in the bathroom for people waiting to step up to the urinals. There's three urinals, 2 kids on each of the end ones, and then the middle one opens up. The guy in front of me, I did not realize was Gary Busey, walks up in between them, gets ready to assume the position to take a leak, and looks to his left, looks to his right, and he goes, gentlemen, start your engines. And it took me a second to realize that Gary Busey had just said it to these like younger, 20-something guys my age, and they had no clue what to do. And it was just so awkward and hilarious. And I think about that all the time. And whenever I roll up to a urinal, there's people on the side of me. I always think about how funny that would be to hit them with the gentlemen start your engines, the Busey line. Busey actually a couple summers ago got kicked out of a convention that we were at. We had seen him at the table, and then hours later we're getting ready to leave, and we're outside and we're kind of like lingering around. And we see Busey walking out to his car, or whatever car was out there. And later we get home, and then we hear that he'd been kicked out because he had uninvited grabbed some female guest. And I'll just say this, seeing Gary Busey from afar, I don't think he's all there.
I mean, who's going to put butter on a sausage? Butter goes on pancakes and waffles and toast and English muffins and bagels, maybe. But buttered sausage, that's a taste ailment. You got a taste ailment.
Bless him. Bless him up and down. Legendary actor. I don't think he's all there. So I think eventually the charges were dropped. I don't know what happened. Not excusing that behavior or anything like that, but just letting you know from seeing interactions, I'm a people watcher. Me and my boys, we people watch. So, just seeing the interactions that he was having, he wasn't all there. He wasn't all there in 2010. You're rolling up to to Cliff and Billy in the urinals and telling them to start their engines. He's not all there. Regardless, he hears great because he heard the piss on the Yankees, Silver Bullet line that I shouted out. But, yeah, that is hilarious. Something that is just insane that I had witnessed was, we were standing in line for Lance Hendrickson. Lance Hendrickson, from, hey, right there. I don't know if you could see that. Stone Cold Brian Bosworth plays Chains in that. He's in Pumpkinhead. He's in Aliens. The dude's a legend, a legitimate film legend. Lance Hendrickson, man's best friend, underrated. And we were waiting in his line. And this is probably at this point, it's 7-8 years ago. Crazy to think, but James Hong was there too. James Hong, obviously, from Lopan, from Big Trouble in Little China. He has crazy acting credits. He's got over 100 acting credits. The guy's been in, he might have a couple hundred acting credits. I think he's got 405 acting credits, something crazy like that. Don't quote me. I can't remember what, but he had pushed past me and Mrs. Heartgod, and literally, as much as I want to do the James Hong impression, I won't. I just won't. But he literally was screaming like Lopan. And he told everyone, get the fuck out of the way. I'm gonna meet Lance. I gotta meet my friend Lance. I gotta meet my friend Lance. And we watched him, and I got pictures of this. Them talk, share a discussion, and make dates. A lunch date. They plan to have lunch that day. And we watched Lance's handler, and them talk, and James Hong and Lance share pleasantries. Had a 5-minute conversation. It was really awesome to see. It's just shit you would never like. Where would you have that? Like, where would you see that? That same convention. Meatloaf was there. R.I.P. Meatloaf. Sandy Johnson, who played the older Laurie Schrode's older sister, Judith Myers, in the original Halloween. Sandy Johnson was there signing autographs. We're standing next to her table. I can't remember who we were in line for, but we were like, less than 5 feet from Sandy Johnson. Meatloaf rolls up in a cane and walks up directly up to her, and we see this right in front of us, and goes, "Meat." And she goes, "What?" He goes, "Meat. Name's Meat." Puts his mitt out for her to shake. Starts chatting her up. So that's something we always say to each other now. We just roll up to each other and go, "Meat. Name's Meat." So just to be able to, Meatloaf's now passed on. We can think about Meatloaf trying to hit on Sandy Johnson. Just hilarious stuff that's so weird. Like growing up watching Halloween, I never thought I'd be in a room, and growing up watching Rocky Horror Picture Show and listening to Bat Out of Hell, like one of the first album covers I remember seeing. If you would have told me at some point the girl who played Judith Myers and Meatloaf, Eddie Rocky Horror, are gonna literally share a moment where Meatloaf walks up to her and goes, "Meat, name's Meat," I would have never believed you. Just the things you can experience just people watching and guest watching at horror conventions is worth the price of admission alone. Now, the prices for admission have gotten a little wacky. The prices for meeting guests have been a little wacky. I've met, thankfully, just about everybody I could possibly care to meet. There are a few white whales out there. Mary Lambert, bless her heart, she was amazing last year. Was able to meet her and Mick Garris. Those were two big ones that were on my list for years. Mary Lambert, if you're not familiar, directed a ton of Madonna videos. She directed Pet Sematary and Pet Sematary 2. She had done I think she did Halloween Town too. Like Mary Lambert did Urban Legends Bloody Mary. Like she's done a lot. Super underrated. If not only for, the Pet Sematary films, which I love. And she was just pleasant as pie. But yeah, there's a ton of guests, actors, whatever you want to call them, that I've knocked out. Gunnar Hansen, R.I.P. He's not with us anymore. Savini I've met twice. So so maybe these next 3 stories all happened, I think, in 2010. I think all 3 of these were 2010. Actually, I can confirm that all 3 of these are 2010. So about a week after that Gary Busey story, there was this horror convention called Saturday Nightmares, and it was in Jersey City, New Jersey. It was only around, I think they had previously done stuff in like the 90s or the early 2000s, and they were rebranding, and they did like 2 conventions. One in March, and I think they had one later that year, and it was the only 2, and then they went away. Anyway, they got a full Day of the Dead cast. As many people that were alive could do it, they got them. They also had a Dawn reunion. This was the first time I met George Romero. Here's the picture of the first time I met George Romero with my boys, Eric and Brian. Great. Like, George, super nice, had a beautiful auto. I got it. It's over there. It's over there, I think, behind the TV. But yeah, it was great. Like, Ken Foray, super hilarious. Flyboy, R.I.P. was there. Scott Reiniger was supposed to be there from Dawn of the Dead, and I think canceled. But I will say this, Joe Pilato, who played Captain Rhodes in Day of the Dead, was there. And we had a run-in with him, and we didn't even know it. We didn't even know who he was. So we're standing outside waiting to get in. It's a brisk early March day in Jersey City. We're standing there in line. There's a dude that rolls up with penny loafers, a pair of like dress pants on, a silk tank top with a blazer over it, sleeves rolled up like he's in Miami Vice, glasses on, aviators on, hair tucked behind his ears, long hair down to the upper part of his back. And they have the Crypt Keeper set up where the ticket booth is, like as just like a prop. No one's actually in there. And we see this guy. This guy's like walking around. He's got a drink in his hand. And he's just kind of like eyeballing everybody in line. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's ripped. This guy's drunk as shit. Just like wondering what the hell's going on. And he walks up to the Crypt Keeper and goes, hello, how are you? And we're just like, damn, this guy is toast. We're sitting there and we're listening to him. And then we're like, he was walking around and he was just like talking like to people in line. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is toasted. Who is this guy? He kind of looked like Jakey Lee. What Jakey Lee looks like currently, that's what Joe Pilato looked like. Again, we didn't know this was Joe Pilato at the time. And about an hour later, we saw him at the table. They're like, holy shit, that's Joe Pilato. And then literally as we saw that, we're like walking down the stairs and he's walking down the stairs like maybe a couple minutes after us. He's got a drink in his hand, screaming, choke on a bus fox, quoting Day of the Dead lines. And I was just like so bewildered. I was just like, oh my God, this is Joe Pilato. It's Captain Rhodes. So that was, and this is the same convention we meet George at for the first time. And George is just like super nice. He talks to BT about, BT's wearing an opera shirt, and George is just like, opera, I love that one. That one's, he did that shot. I don't even know how he did it. And George, bless his heart, just smelling like straight cigarettes, friggin' nicotine fingers. Bless his heart. Just the man. And then I think at the Horror Hound in 2010, myself, the Tyler brothers, Eric and Brian, and our friend Ashley, who's unfortunately since passed. We do have this great memory of going to this convention with her, along with a slew of others. So, rest in peace, Ashley. Think about you often, but this is such a fun memory, and I'm so glad that she's a part of it because it is such a fun memory. But we drove back out to Cincinnati for Horror Hound in 2010, and Brian was very excited to meet. And this is very inside baseball. If you've listened to the podcast, you will know the name Brian. You will know the name Eric, BT, ET. You will know the Tyler brothers. So if you're hearing these stories and you want more, go to the podcast and listen to them. I'll put the links in the bio. It's on Apple and Spotify. But if you're familiar with any of this stuff, if you're not familiar with any of this, which I'm guessing most of you on YouTube aren't, you can definitely check out the podcast. You'll get more insight into the two brothers. And Sean, who I mentioned did shit talk Savini to his face. One of the few that could do that. And he was very excited to meet Malcolm McDowell. Goes up, I'm rolling with him. I'm not meeting Malcolm McDowell, but Malcolm McDowell, obviously legendary actor, Clockwork Orange, Rob Zombie's Halloweens. The guy's been in literally everything. Anyway, guy does not look up, acknowledge BT at all. And BT was completely pissed. About 20 minutes later, we're in Carolyn Williams' line. We meet Carolyn Williams. We're having a conversation with Carolyn Williams. He comes over and is just like, oh, Caroline, how are we doing today? And just, he's like, oh, meeting some fans? And it was just so, like, he was like fun and looked like he was having a good time. He could not give a fuck about who he was meeting at his table, but Carolyn Williams lit him up. And it happened when Brian and I were meeting Carolyn Williams. So it just added insult to injury, and Brian was pissed the rest of the day. And it was just hilarious. And I don't think Brian got a picture with him. I'll have to ask him. I don't think he did, but we did get him with Carolyn Williams. And that same convention, Brian and our friend Ashley, who I mentioned, rolled up to Sasha Jensen. Now, if you know the name Sasha Jensen, he was in Dazed and Confused. He was also in Halloween 4 as, was it Grady? Was it Brady or Grady? I can't even remember. And he was also in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. Anyway, so Brian and Ashley and I didn't meet him, but they rolled up to him. And Brian's trying to decide what he wants. And he's just like, do you want me to write a quote on it? And Brian's like, he's like, sure. He's like, well, what quote? And Brian's like, he's like, if you don't remember the quote, I'm not writing it. Mind you, he wrote something that is not something he says in Halloween 4. He got a Halloween 4 8x10 sign. Was not something that he said. It was like, we got to go to the basement or something like that. It was so random. He never said that in Halloween 4. Anyway, they walk away. They didn't pay him. They realize after the fact, after we're back to the hotel hours later, that they didn't pay him. They actually rolled back down there, paid him, and he was so like gracious that they had come back to pay him that he gave our friend Ashley a free 8x10 autograph. So that is always a funny because what's funny is because Eric and I are kind of jerks, or we can be. And I was just like, what do you mean you didn't pay him? And he's like, we didn't pay. Like, we just kind of walked away and he didn't say anything. And I was just like, oh, that's so random. Why would you do that? And we're like, why would you? I can't believe you would do that. Like, why wouldn't you? And he's just like, I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I didn't even realize I didn't pay him. And I was just like, wow, what a dick. Like, that you wouldn't pay him. So we made him feel really bad. So he goes back to do it. And then we were pissed that they got a free 8x10 from him. And I remember us busting our friend Ashley's balls and saying, you know, like, you weren't even trying to meet him. You got a free 8x10. So it was just like a funny thing that happened that weekend, and I always think back to that, and it's a fun memory to have, especially considering. And yeah, there is just, and then the fans, like I have seen fans just, it's gotten worse. I watched a guy, we were in Skeet Ulrich's line years ago at this point, 7-8 years ago. And Nev Campbell was there as well. This is before the Scream resurgence. This is well before the Scream resurgence. And you can imagine that some of the people that come to meet some female stars are interesting. We'll say interesting. And this guy sits down and he's trying to find a picture of Nev that he wants, and he has a binder. He's sitting Indian style in the skeet line, flipping through nude photos of anybody who was in a horror movie, and it was just, no, do you. I'm all for you doing you, but there's like, and I'm not like, I'm farthest thing from being like super like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't be normally offended by that at all, but there's like kids around, and this guy is just brashly opening up this binder of photos of people that are nude from these horror movies, which is, again, if that's your thing, that's fine. But you're like laying down, you're sitting Indian style, doing a presentation with everything. It's like, what are you doing, dude? And he just looked a little on the creepy side. We'll just say that. And yeah, he's sitting down there and he just looked a little creepy. I don't know. And I've seen people bring in weapons after they exclusively said do not bring in weapons. I know there was a big thing. I think Kane Hodder had cut his arm on someone's machete because they were bringing in a real machete for him to sign, either Jason or, you know, Hatchet, whatever. Just like some of the most wild stuff that I've witnessed. We met Scout Taylor Compton once, and the guy was saying like, oh, I saw you tweeted about the hotel's shampoo and conditioner, and I brought you some, and I think this is the stuff you like. And you could just see on her face that it creeped her out. And this is before the internet really got out of control. This was like 2009, 2010. This is before the internet really unraveled. Internet probably started unraveling around 2013, 14. That's when it really started coming off the rails. But yeah, there's just so much wild stuff that we've seen at conventions. And I mean, I could talk about some of the conventions I've been to and some of the stuff I've seen, the people running the conventions. That's a whole nother story. And I'm not trying to get my face put up as like a presentation before the con weekends for outing them. So But yeah, if we ever have a conversation, I'll definitely let you know some of the crazy stuff I've seen from people who run conventions. It's not all of them. It's only a select few that are especially interesting. I'll just say that. But yeah, I thought it would be funny to talk about some stories of just going to horror conventions. Obviously, there's a lot of cosplaying's not my thing. More power to you if you're cosplaying. I appreciate and really admire some of the costumes that people come up with. Like I said, the prices have went up for the guests, for admission, for everything. Thankfully, I just go to chill for the most part. I'll go to chill with my boys and make a day of it, or a weekend. Most of the time we're driving out for the day. It's a 4 or 5 hour drive no matter where we go. There's only like one that's local, kind of. So we're driving to New Jersey, we're driving to somewhere in PA, things like that. But yeah, it's conventions are very interesting. So hopefully you enjoyed some of these stories, and a lot of these stories are like kind of like you had to be there, but they are nevertheless very interesting. And I'm sure I forgot some stories. I would love to probably remember and share more, but maybe another time. But thanks for watching, and go check out the podcast. The links are in the description for Apple and Spotify. You can click on those. Follow us at Instagram at Heart Guide Media. And if you're at a horror convention in the Northeast, especially, I mean, I'll travel to other ones, but most of the time I'm hitting all the Northeast ones. So if you're at a horror convention in the Northeast, let me know. Maybe we'll link up, and we'll have merch by then. So maybe you'll hook you up with a sticker or a shirt or something. But thanks for watching. Spread the word. Give us a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe, everything you want to do to help make the channel grow. Please do. And I appreciate it. Thank you.